We're less than 2 months from the election, and Democrats won't tell us Kamala's agenda. Behind the scenes, CNN reports that Kamala's internal numbers and battlegrounds are looking rough. And as pumped as Harris aides are about her debate performance earlier this week, they don't think it changed any of that. Top aides on the Harris campaign told CNN they fear if the election were held next Tuesday instead of 8 Tuesdays from now, Trump still would be in a good position to win. Kamala may have raised a lot of cash after the debate and demonstrated that she's more coherent than Biden, but she still looks completely lost.
Madam Vice President, how are you feeling about Pennsylvania?
I am feeling very good about Pennsylvania because there are a lot of people in Pennsylvania who deserve to be seen and heard. That's why I'm here in Johnstown, and I will be continuing to travel around the state to make sure that I'm listening as much as we are talking.
I'm feeling very good about Pennsylvania because there are a lot of people who deserve to be seen and heard. Who talks like that? Normal politicians would say, feeling great about Pennsylvania. It's a key state. Joe Biden and I have done a lot for the people of Pennsylvania. Rattle off a list of what you did, then rattle off a list of things you're going to do. Attack Trump, crack a joke, say goodbye. What's so hard about that? The woman looks frozen. Earlier in the day, she gave her first solo interview to Brian Taff. Ever heard of him? We hadn't either. He's a local action news anchor for the local ABC station in Philly. And Kamala could not get it together.
When we talk about bringing down prices and making life more affordable for people, what are one or two specific things you have in mind for that?
Well, I'll start with this. I grew up a middle-class kid. My mother raised my sister and me. She worked very hard. She was able to finally save up enough money to buy our first house when I was a teenager. I grew up in a community of hardworking people, you know, construction workers and nurses and teachers. And I try to explain to some people who may not have had the same experience, you know, but a lot of people will relate to this. You know, I grew up and creating opportunity for people, for example, to start a small business.
The question was, how are you going to bring down prices? And Kamala's answer was, I grew up around construction workers who took care of their lawns. And then I heard something about ambition and aspiration. Kamala's only idea to fight inflation was price controls, but she's not allowed to say that anymore because it's stupid. So she has nothing to say and just runs out the clock with childhood stories. And it got worse.
Some people have a question, given maybe your current role as Vice President of the United States, how different you are from Joe Biden.
Well, I'm obviously not Joe Biden. And, you know, I offer a new generation of leadership. And so, for example, thinking about developing and creating an opportunity economy where it's about investing in areas that really need a lot of work. And maybe focusing on, again, the aspirations and the dreams, but also just recognizing that at this moment in time, some of the stuff we could take for granted years ago, we can't take for granted anymore.
What did she just say? How are you different than Joe Biden? The entire goal of her campaign is to separate herself from Joe Biden. The campaign slogan is a new way forward. It's a new way forward from Joe Biden. So how exactly are you a new way forward? She couldn't answer. The interview continued.
Another plan that I have that is a new approach is to expand the child tax credit to $6,000 for young families for the first year of their child's life.
Joe Biden's child tax credit's $3,000 and Kamala's is $6,000. Of all the things, border, inflation, crime, Israel, housing, the only difference between Kamala and Joe Biden is a $3,000 difference in the child tax credit. She continued.
My approach is about new ideas, new policies that are directed at the current moment. And also, to be very honest with you, my focus is very much in what we need to do over the next 10, 20 years to catch up to the 21st century around, again, capacity, but also challenges.
She's focused on today, but she's also focused on tomorrow. And not just around capacity, but also challenges. She doesn't have any new ideas. She can't say how she's different than Joe Biden. And she's so nervous you can hear her swallowing. Maybe she's nervous because she doesn't see a path to victory. New York Times polling says 63% of voters blame her for the border. 54% blame Kamala for rising prices. And the voters understand what the media doesn't. Kamala's been in the White House for 3.5 years, didn't deliver. And the country needs a change.
There are a lot more questions. Of course, I would love to ask Kamala Harris about her leadership style and her plans and how she plans to execute. But are those undecided voters saying, I'm going to kind of lean Trump here because I want change? I don't get it.
Mika doesn't get that people want change? Because high crime and high prices and open borders don't penetrate her beautiful cocoon. And to many successful people on TV, yeah, it doesn't penetrate. But to an American that cares about the country and cares about the American people, she should see how working Americans have gotten hammered by Biden-Harris. They don't get it, and they don't want to get it. It's tough to admit your party failed. Easier to admit the other party's in a cult.
I don't think the polling's going to get better for him, but his cult base is locked in. This now, anytime he loses, it was rigged. And, you know, it is really depressing that people are stooping to that level, but that's what's going on.
Michael Schellenberger is the CBR chair of censorship, politics, and free speech at the University of Austin. Let me ask you a quick question. First about ABC. There's now growing calls for an investigation into the ABC News debate. She admitted that it didn't go well for Joe Biden when CNN didn't fact check. So that's why she had to fact check, and he so many times. Do you think that's right?
Hey, Jesse, good to be with you. I think the most interesting thing about this now is that we now know that there were 7 times that Kamala Harris lied during that debate. These are 7 instances that are clear fabrications or lies about Trump's record. We see it with IVF, abortion, the bloodbath remark, Project 25, the no casualties in war. The list goes on, and they didn't call her out a single time, and they called out Trump 5 times. Trump thought he was going to a debate. Kamala Harris had prepared for a performance. She was entirely scripted down to the movements that she made in that debate. And so I think that when you see her again, as you showed just now in these clips, we see that when she's really in a situation where she has to fend for herself and talk on the fly in an improvisational way, in other words, behaving like a presidential candidate, there's nothing there. It's just she's someone that can only perform from a script. We've been asking who's running the country, who's the president. The other question is, who's the Democratic candidate for the presidency right now, because we still don't know who Kamala Harris is.
Think about how long she's gotten away with not saying how she's different than Joe Biden and what she's going to do to bring down prices. She's gone through a convention, a CNN interview, and a 90-minute presidential debate where I think almost, 70 million people watched. No one knows how she's different. No one knows what her plans are. And then she does an interview with a local yokel from ABC Philly, and she's still, Mike, 2 months to go before the election, still can't answer that. What does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, look, she's running to be commander-in-chief, and she can't command an improvisation. She can't actually think on the fly, speak on the fly, describe what she's going to be doing without having a handler there, either in the form of her vice president or in the form of ABC News so-called debate moderators. Again, she's someone that can behave when she's scripted. When somebody else is running her, She's not able to actually act on the fly. And of course, that's what being president is. It's about commanding the situation, any situation that you're in. And this is an extremely dangerous moment right now. So to have the media basically enabling a kind of puppetry, a kind of performance, it's very scary and dangerous, I think.
She's even a bigger puppet than Biden was, and we saw what happened the last time, so it could get worse with her. Mike, have a great weekend. Enjoy California.
Great to be with you, Jesse.
National Press Secretary for the Trump campaign, Caroline Leavitt. So this was the first solo interview. How did that go?
53 days. That's the time Kamala Harris spent preparing for this big, bad solo sit-down interview with a local reporter in Philly. And it was a nightmare. She was a train wreck. She was nervous, as you pointed out, Jesse. She was swallowing, and she couldn't answer a single question. She was asked very simply, as you said, what are you going to do to bring down the cost of living in this country? And she threw out a word salad. And this is what the mainstream media still does not understand, as proven by Tuesday night's debate. They do not get why millions of Americans support President Trump. The pundits are all saying Kamala Harris did a great job. Why? Because she can memorize talking points for 90 minutes and regurgitate them? That's not going to rewrite the last 43 months of misery that she has brought onto this country. Every time she goes off unscripted, she's a complete mess. And President Trump says what the American people are thinking. And he says what they lack the courage to say in their workplace, to their family and their friends. He speaks for the forgotten men and women of this country, and he is something that Kamala Harris will never be: authentic. She lacks authenticity. She goes wherever the political wind blows her. She has zero conviction. She would be a terrible president. That has been proven true by her interview today and her debate performance on Tuesday.
Well, she's going to be doing Oprah Winfrey next week. I don't know how you predict that's going to go. We'd love to hear your thoughts. We'd also love to hear, you know, President Trump might be open to doing a debate if he's in the mood, if the mood strikes him. How do you think that's going to shake out?
Well, you heard the man. If he's in the mood, maybe he will do it, maybe he will not. But as President Trump said after Tuesday night, and similar to boxing, when the fighter loses, you immediately call for a rematch. That's why Kamala Harris wants a rematch, because the reviews are in from Tuesday night. And the American people are not satisfied with Kamala Harris. They have a lot of unanswered questions. 6 in 10 undecided voters, according to Reuters, are now voting for President Trump after Tuesday night's debate. Even the failing New York Times had to admit that the pundits say Kamala won, but voters are not so sure, because again, he is speaking on behalf of millions of Americans, and they see through the mainstream media's bias. And by the way, David Muir, Lindsay Davis should be absolutely ashamed of themselves, and they owe President Trump an apology for their fake news fact check of his crime data. Violent crime is up under Kamala Harris. Their own Department of Justice just proved that yesterday.
You're right. And David does still have nice hair, even though it's maybe not as good as 5 years ago. Still nice.
Not as good as yours, Jesse.
Not as good as mine, thank you. Not a great moderator, that's for sure. Thank you so much, Caroline.
Dignity. Dignity. Ambitions. Ambitions. Aspirations. Aspirations. Run out the clock. Run out the clock. Cocoon. Cocoon. Cult. Cult. Stoop. Stoop. Fend. Fend. On the fly. On the fly. Improvisational. Improvisational. Puppetry. Puppetry. Train wreck. Train wreck. Regurgitate. Regurgitate.
If you enjoy this content, please consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date with future videos. Thank you for watching.